Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a deeply frustrating mystery that affects almost all of us. You know that feeling when you look at the news and wonder why the stock market is hitting record highs, closing at all-time peaks time and time again, while your daily cost of living just feels completely broken? It really feels like we're living in two totally different realities at exactly the same time. Well, let's dive right into this and figure out exactly how this machine operates. To make sense of this paradox, we're going to peel back the layers step by step. We'll look at the two different economies, how we measure future expectations, the autopilot market machine, financial tricks and casino bets, the cheap money effect, and finally, becoming an asset owner.
All right, Section 1. Two different economies. Let's start by severing a mental tie we literally all have. It's drilled into us from every direction that the stock market and the everyday economy are the exact same thing, but they are absolutely not. See, the economy is real life. It's jobs, it's your wages, it's the price of a loaf of bread, rent, or filling up your gas tank. Basically, how affordable is your daily life? The stock market, on the other hand, that's simply the value of shares in publicly traded companies. And here's the kicker. The biggest companies in the world can actually become more valuable by cutting jobs or raising prices. Literally, the exact two things that make the everyday economy worse for you. And yet, when they do that, the stock goes up.
Now, you might be wondering who actually benefits from those rising stocks. When the market hits a jackpot, the news tells us all to celebrate, right? But the reality is that the top 10% of households own the overwhelming majority of all stocks. The bottom half, they own almost none, zero. So when the market rallies and just magically adds trillions of dollars in value, that money flows entirely to the people who already own the assets. The rich get richer in their sleep, while the rest of us just, read about it over breakfast.
Moving on to Section 2, measuring future expectations, which brings us to our next big question.
If the real-world news is so terrible right now, think layoffs, global conflicts, crazy inflation, why on earth do stocks keep climbing anyway? Well, we have to rethink what a stock price actually is. It's not a measure of how a company is doing right this exact second. It's a bet on the future. Imagine you have a massive exam coming up, and literally everyone, your parents, your teachers, fully expect you to completely fail. But results day comes, and you barely scrape a pass. By any normal measure, a bare pass isn't great, right? But because everyone expected a total disaster, it feels like a massive win.
The stock market acts in the exact same way. Fear gets baked into a stock's price weeks or even months in advance. So if a company reports bad news, but that bad news is just slightly less bad than everyone feared, boom, the stock can absolutely fly. Investors aren't necessarily reacting to good news, they're just reacting to news that beat their incredibly grim expectations.
All right, Section 3, the autopilot market machine. Because let's be real, simply beating expectations here and there doesn't explain relentless, year after year, record highs.
To figure that out, we have to look at a massive structural shift in how average people invest today. Decades ago, people manually weighed up a company's value before buying its shares. Fast forward to today, and money pours automatically into index funds every single payday. Through retirement accounts, auto-invest apps, you name it. This is called passive investing. And the absolutely crucial point here is that this passive system now holds well over half of all the money in U.S. funds.
Think about what this actually does in practice. It's like a mindless shopper walking into a grocery store every single payday. They don't check prices, they don't look for quality or bargains, they just blindly fill their basket with the most expensive items in the store and whatever just went up in price the most. Sounds completely crazy, right? But with passive investing, tens of millions of people are doing exactly that, entirely on autopilot out of every single paycheck.
Because index funds buy companies in strict proportion to their size, this autopilot money is forced directly into the biggest companies. The money flows to whatever is already the biggest, making it even bigger, which forces even more money into it the very next payday. It's an endless loop. And because of this, a small handful of giant tech companies now make up around a third of the entire S&P 500 index. The price is being pushed up by automatic, highly consistent buying. Not necessarily because these companies are suddenly innovating at some unprecedented rate.
Next up, Section 4, financial tricks in casino bets. Beyond this passive autopilot investing, there are other sneaky forces at play.
Companies and traders actively use really sophisticated mechanics to push prices up even further, without actually improving their real-world products. When a company has a ton of extra cash, they could build a new factory, invest in employees, or create better products, right? But increasingly, companies use that cash to buy their own shares back off the open market. Last year alone, companies were on track to spend over $1 trillion doing this. But does buying back stock actually make the business any better or larger?
Well, no, it really doesn't. Think of a company's total profit like a pizza. Buying back shares doesn't make the pizza any larger. It just means there are fewer slices. So the existing shareholders get a larger slice of the exact same pie. This makes the company's earnings per share look fantastic, which obviously pushes the stock price up. It's essentially a clever accounting trick that makes the pizza look tastier without actually adding a single new ingredient.
And aside from corporate buybacks, there's also trader behavior. A gambler once famously noted that the most dangerous time in a casino isn't when you're losing, it's when everyone at the table is winning. The chips are stacking up, the drinks are flowing, and literally no one wants to leave. Well, modern financial markets have recreated this exact chaotic environment.
It happens through something called zero-day options. Basically, traders place massive, rapid-fire bets that the market will rise by the end of that exact same day. If thousands of people are making these bets, market makers have to take the other side. So, to protect themselves from huge losses, those market makers rush out and buy the S&P 500 to hedge their risk. This creates a wild, high-speed loop. Traders bet the market goes up, market makers are forced to buy stocks to hedge, and that forced buying literally pushes the market artificially high. It's just money quickly moving prices around, entirely detached from the real-world value of the companies.
Moving on to Section 5, the cheap money effect. Let's pause for a second and ask a really fundamental question. For all of these automated index machines, corporate buybacks, and casino bets to actually work, they require massive amounts of capital. So where is all this money coming from? The answer lies with central banks. Following the 2008 financial crisis, and then again during the disruptions of 2020, governments and central banks flooded the global system with cheap money and held interest rates near the floor for years. More recently, as inflation spiked, fear became the fuel. People were terrified of leaving their money in a savings account where inflation would just eat it away, so they pushed even more cash into the market just to protect what they had.
But here is the absolutely critical disconnect. This historic flood of cheap money, it didn't go into your wages. It didn't make your weekly grocery run cheaper. It went straight into the laps of people who already had spare capital to invest. It heavily inflated the prices of assets, like stocks, real estate, and Bitcoin, while barely touching the amount you get paid for doing your everyday job.
And finally, Section 6, becoming an asset owner. This leads us to a pretty stark reality about this strong economy we keep hearing about.
Today, the richest 10% account for almost half of all consumer spending, meaning the quote-unquote strong economy is largely just asset owners feeling super confident because their portfolios keep climbing. It is so easy to look at this system and feel like the goalposts just keep moving, and they are. But getting angry doesn't pay the rent. The most practical solution outlined in our source material is actually highly focused. You have to spend less than you earn, work relentlessly to increase your income since there is no ceiling on your earning potential, and slowly, systematically transition yourself into an asset owner.
See, the modern financial system we've just mapped out has one unbreakable rule. It strictly and disproportionately rewards asset owners. Your ultimate goal must be to stop simply trading your hours for wages and start forcing your money to participate in this market machine so it can actually work for you.
We've seen exactly how passive funds blindly push tech giants higher, how corporate accounting tricks inflate share prices, and how cheap money enriches the asset-owning class. So the next time you see headlines celebrating record stock market highs while you're stressed out at the grocery checkout, you won't be confused. You'll understand exactly how the machine operates, leaving you to ask the only question that actually matters. Record highs? But for who?